computer. You're good to go. Hey, thanks for hanging out here Friday afternoon, the Scott Sand Show on News Radio 1370 and 92.9 FM. It's Friday, September 4th, a great Friday afternoon and a beautiful weekend in store. As you can tell, I might sound a little different live from the home studio for a little while this afternoon and also on Zoom with a couple of buddies of mine, James Jarvis, president of the Ohio Vape Trade Association, and Sherwin Mena from United Vape Alliance, joining us now because there's a big thing in Washington, D.C. tomorrow that I want to tell you about and explain why this is so important on so many levels. It's the what is perhaps probably the final Save the Vape rally on the Ellipse in Washington, D.C. tomorrow afternoon. Sherwin, let's start with you. You're one of the organizers of this with the United Vape Alliance.
That's correct. That is correct.
So why is this
United
so
Vapers
important?
Alliance? We're not. It's it really is technically what we would like to consider our last stand. September 9th, which would be 4 days away from the rally, the FDA is requiring that all e-liquid manufacturers and just general manufacturers of vaping products submit what's called a pre-market tobacco application. And that costs millions of dollars, and a lot of small to medium-sized manufacturers, which we consider mom and pop manufacturers, can't afford it. So you're looking at thousands, tens of thousands of businesses literally shutting their doors overnight.
So this is the infamous PMTA. I thought I had kind of backdoored a deal for you guys with Secretary Azar one time when he was on my show not too long ago.
Sure did.
I remember hearing that radio show. Yes, that was would have been nice to have gotten a deeper response from him.
Yeah, I know that audio. That audio actually made its way to HHS. Was hand delivered by a friend of ours, Amanda Wheeler, who was meeting with HHS. Hand delivered that audio clip where Alex Azar said that there was going to be a streamlined pathway for small independent businesses. HHS heard that and was kind of taken aback because they knew nothing about it. That also was delivered to the FDA. And to this date, still a few months later, we have heard nothing of this streamlined pathway nor any more mention of it from Secretary Azar. So
the PMTA will be required for small manufacturers of the liquid that goes into a vape. If you're vaping something, the liquid would need to be cleared. And there are many of you who produce your own liquids, boutique liquids, if you will. I'm vaping something now, I think, from James's shop. And this would prohibit a lot of small shops from making their own liquid and would force only the largest manufacturers and even big tobacco companies that you're trying to help get people off of from manufacturing their liquids.
Yeah, not only the liquids have to go through this process, but every piece of the device has to go through this process. So all the manufacturers of the devices, the batteries, the coils, the tanks, the mouthpieces, everything has to go through this process. So you're going to see a real backwards movement from the technology aspect, because if these companies don't submit and go through this process, there won't be as much hardware on the market either.
And this is going to have a huge economic impact. And first of all, this really seems counterintuitive to what President Trump has tried to do for the past 3.5 years, streamlining the regulatory process for small businesses, cutting a lot of the red tape out of doing business. This seems to be making it more difficult for small businesses instead of easier, which, in my opinion, is not what this president has tried to accomplish.
Right. Nationally, this is a $24 billion a year business. Just in the state of Ohio, we're over $10 million. So just imagine what impact that's going to have once this goes through. There's 6,500 jobs roughly in the state of Ohio that'll be eliminated, 650 small businesses, including manufacturers. That's just in Ohio. I mean, Sherwin may know the national numbers, but he can speak to that.
Yeah, and that's one of the main reasons why that's one of the main reasons we are having this rally, is we really need to go ahead and bring recognition and awareness to the White House as to what this issue truly is. Last year, we had a rally, we got the president's attention, we got his ear, and we were able to actually be at a table and have a very meaningful discussions that we would like to continue as well. But this is Washington. This is an election year. And the powers that be need to understand that you are talking about one of the most important voting blocks in the history of elections. We are 13 million strong, plus friends, plus families. A majority of us are single issue voters because many of us understand that this is our lives that we're dealing with. This is a less harmful alternative to cigarettes. If you go ahead and limit that freedom of choice for many of the consumers out there, a lot of them are going to go back to cigarettes. And people are going to be upset. Their families are going to be upset because they have seen the benefits that vaping has done for millions of cigarette smokers. We can't go forward. We need to go back, and we need to show that we vape, we vote, and we are here to stay.
And I want to talk about that for just a second. We're talking with Sherwin Mena from the United Vapers Alliance, James Jarvis, president of the Ohio Vape Trade Association. For whatever reason, vaping has been lumped perceptually in with tobacco use and nicotine use, and it is nicotine. And I'm a horrible person to try to explain the benefits of vaping, but I've certainly heard the stories from the two of you and for numerous other mutual friends of ours who are in the vaping industry and whose lives have been saved by vaping. I'm a casual vapor. I'm a cigar smoker, but I've never smoked cigarettes. I kind of do this when I need or want a quick jolt of nicotine and don't have 90 minutes to sit down and smoke a nice cigar. But for so many people, vaping as a product has allowed them to kick the tobacco habit and the cigarette habit with all of its harmful additives and chemicals that are in the ordinary cigarette. As a result of everybody quitting that bad habit of cigarette smoking, now big tobacco is getting involved, and I think they're partially to blame for all of the negative publicity that vaping in general has received, because they're trying to make sure that they keep their piece of the pie for people who are addicted or want to use voluntarily nicotine.
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at the cigarette, like you said, the nicotine is in a cigarette, but it is not the harmful part of a cigarette.
I don't think it's any worse than caffeine. If I'm drinking a Diet Coke, I mean, they're both drugs, and they both have a similar effect on your body's reaction.
Yeah, they're actually classified the same way by the FDA. And, the FDA has come out and said that it's not the nicotine that is the deadly part of a cigarette. It's what happens from the combustion of all the chemicals inside of it. Vape doesn't have all those different chemicals in it. So therefore, you're getting nicotine without the harmful side effects. I mean, this is a huge win for public health, but then you have groups out there that are addicted to the money that they're getting from the tobacco sales. So then forth, you have these large tobacco companies coming in. They're coming after the business, but they don't mind if people go back to smoking cigarettes because they're still going to sell their cigarettes. The states and cities are still going to get their monies, and these groups are still going to be funded. I mean, it's absolutely backwards of the way it should be.
There are so many people who use vaping to step down off of nicotine or cigarette smoking entirely. They'll start with a high nicotine level liquid and step down to zero. Some people may continue to vape afterwards because they still enjoy it, and they enjoy the flavors, which has been part of the debate as well. The debate over flavors inducing children into cigarette and tobacco habits, which is a false narrative, in my opinion. I'm a 50-year-old man, and I'm enjoying this pineapple upside down cake or whatever it is that I've got in my mod right now. And there's nothing wrong with flavors. I mean, in fact, that may make it easier for people to kick other habits.
Absolutely. I mean, when you enjoy something, you want to do it more. If you're vaping something that tastes good and it's less harmful, you're going to continue to have success doing that and working your way down. If you're vaping something that you don't like, you're going to put it down and walk away from it and go back to the very thing that was killing you in the first place.
Which is why it's so weird that some of the regulations that were coming out or being discussed would have limited vaping to only tobacco or menthol flavored juices.
Yes, and that's where Sherwin, and UVA stepped up and hit it out of the park last year in Washington D.C. in front of the White House on November 9th. That rally was the key part of this industry staying alive at that point.
Yeah, we're looking at a federal flavor ban, or at least whispers of a federal flavor ban. And we believe that the rally was instrumental in bringing us to the table with the president and having him understand our position. And I think the same thing needs to be done here. I mean, right now, the FDA was expecting maybe 25 PMTA applications. They're expecting, I think, over 100,000 to 250,000 PMTA applications. They're not ready. They're not equipped.
Yeah, it was over 400 million submissions is what they're expecting to have come through.
That's right. The federal government has no way to quickly process that many applications, and unless they're using this as a regulatory fee money grab, there's also no reason for that. We obviously want the products and the liquids to be safe, but there's got to be an easier way, and there's got to be that streamlined process.
I mean,
and just give you an idea. To give you an idea of the type of bureaucracy that you're dealing with, we have a lot of businesses that are attempting to file a PMTA right now, and they're having some questions, and they go to the FDA and they ask, and the FDA goes, you know what, we don't have that answer, but we'll get it to you in 7 days. 7 days, it'll be past the September 9th date. So that's the kind of bureaucracy that you're dealing with in regards to the FDA. So, and we've only gotten, the industry only recently has gotten guidance about 8 months ago in regards to what the FDA really wants us to test for. And it's the testing which is so expensive. The harmful and potential harmful constituency testing is only 2 labs in the United States are qualified to do that testing. And there are two or three more overseas that are also qualified. So you've got a very limited backlog of demand and a very short supply of labs that have the ability to do these types of tests.
Well,
and it's
Sherwin,
just,
let's talk about the testing for just a second, because for a long time on my show and Fred's show in the morning, we've talked about in many ways sarcastically that if it saves just one life, if just one child is saved. So we heard for a long time, and there are still quote unquote public service announcements running on a lot of television stations about the harmful effects of vaping. You could be inhaling metal products and byproducts and shards of glass in your lungs, or whatever they're trying to sell to keep people from vaping and remain on cigarettes, to remain on traditional combustible tobacco. And that's just not true, at least not from your reputable vape shops across Toledo, Northwest Ohio, and around the country. We're talking in many of these cases about the vaping deaths that occurred, or the deaths that were at least attributed to vaping that were the result of black market vape products, mainly related to THC vape products.
Correct. And one of the things that you've got to understand is in regards to all these studies that are thrown out there, the only studies that matter are peer-reviewed studies in which other scientists have looked at the data and determined whether or not there's a certain degree of feasibility to the actual study. Everything else is paid for science. Everything else is paid for science. If you wanted to go ahead and get a doctor to go ahead and show that 3 mice can go ahead and develop a serious disease through vaping by pumping them with vaping 24/7 at the highest milligram dosage for 365 days, you're going to get that result. So please, if you look at these studies, you've got to understand, just realize that peer-reviewed studies are the only ones that really need to have serious attention. Additionally, you also have other countries that are endorsing vaping overseas. The UK has endorsed it. Many of the EU countries have endorsed vaping because they understand that it's a less harmful alternative. So we've got to look at what our priorities are here. And what it really boils down to is freedom of choice. And do we want to go ahead and limit that freedom of choice and limit the health benefits that you can get from quitting smoking by moving to a less harmful alternative.
This is America, damn it. We're all about freedom of choice. And unfortunately, as you're talking about research projects, Philip Morris, all the big tobacco companies can afford to pay whatever scientists they want to say whatever they want, whereas the local vape shop here in Toledo can't afford a study like that. We're talking with Sherwin Mena from United Vapers Alliance, James Jarvis, the Ohio Vape Trade Association. Save the Vape Rally on the 11th in Washington, D.C. tomorrow. Obviously, it's too late now for any vapers in support of this to drive to D.C. You'll be online on social media tomorrow, I'm sure. James, where can we follow you? And then Sherwin, follow James up by telling us how we can get involved to save the vape before the deadline is up.
So you can go to www.ohvta.com. You can find the Ohio Vapor Trade Association on Facebook. You can also go to Vapor Technology Association online. And then Sherwin has the information for UVA, which is going to be the key connection to all of this, where all the communication is going to be running through.
Yeah. We will be live streaming the event on social media via Facebook and Twitter and YouTube. On Twitter, you can find us on United Vapers Alliance. Our webpage, if you want to get more information on the rally, is unitedvapersalliance.org. And we hope to see everyone there Saturday from 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. on the 5th of September.
And if you can't be there, UVA will be giving out direction as to what you can do if you're not going to be able to make it, because that's going to be a key component as well. There's going to be people on the ground, but we need people at home to be activated and involved, and information will be following on UVA's site about that.
Call Congressman Latta, call Congressman Capter, call Sherrod Brown, call Rob Portman, call the Department of HHS, and get involved while we still have some time. This is something that you can have a role in changing before it's too late. And if you smoke combustible cigarettes and you've been wanting to get off, give this a try. Anybody at a local vape shop here in the city of Toledo, Northwest Ohio, the state of Ohio, and around the country can talk with you about this. And they're, I would venture to say, usually well-educated enough to give you good advice if you want to quit smoking or if you want to try vaping. They'll point you in the right direction, as they did me, and you'll walk through the entire process. If you're 12 years old, they're not going to give you a vape kit. They will ID. I'm 50. I look more than 50 years old, and I'm still ID'd every time I go into a local vape shop. It's a well-run organization across the board in the state of Ohio. James Jarvis, Ohio Vape Trade Association, Sherwin Mena. We'll continue this conversation online on Zoom, and I'll post this shortly at WSPD.com and our Facebook page. It's the Scott Sand Show, Friday afternoon on News Radio 1370 and 92.9 FM. How many